I'm Teisha Bader. Thank you for joining me. Once every 5 years, American Jews have a unique opportunity to have their voices heard and make an impact in Israel's future. And that is by voting in the U.S. election to the 39th World Zionist Congress. The voting is for delegates to the Congress, which will take place in Jerusalem at the end of October. The election is administered by the American Zionist Movement. Take a look.
We, the Jewish people, share a remarkable story, one of resilience, connection, and action.
Founded over 125 years ago by Theodor Herzl, the World Zionist Congress brings us together every 5 years to shape our shared destiny.
As we face new and continuing challenges, rising anti-Semitism, the scars of October 7th, war in Israel, and questions of community connection, this is our moment to decide what comes next.
Through the Congress, it is determined how over $1 billion is allocated annually to strengthen Jewish identity, enhance communities, and foster education.
It's not just about funding. It's about creating lasting change for generations.
Between March 10th and May 4th, 2025, American Jews will elect 152 delegates, nearly a third of the representatives, to the next Zionist Congress.
With over 20 diverse slates, this is your chance to ensure your values and vision are represented.
Anyone Jewish, 18 or older, who is a U.S. citizen primarily living in America or a permanent U.S. resident can vote.
The election, conducted by the American Zionist Movement, costs $5 for registration and processing, an easy step toward a stronger tomorrow.
Visit ZionistElection.org to learn more, register, and vote.
Together, we can write the next chapter of our shared Jewish and Zionist story.
And we are so fortunate to have Executive Director of the American Zionist Movement here in the JBS studio to tell us more about what the vote means and why it's so important. Herbert Block. Welcome, Herb.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. So we saw the video, which really explains it very well, but tell us more about the process and how you see it as something really vital that every American Jew over the age of 18 should be doing.
Well, yes, as you said, this is something that happens every 5 years. We're grateful that the JBS has had interest in this and hosted a debate in the past for candidates for the election. It is an important opportunity for American Jews at a grassroots level to participate in a democratic election to express their views on important issues for the American Jewish community, for world Jewry, and for Israel. And by doing so, electing delegates to the Zionist Congress. The Zionist Congress, as most of your viewers probably know, was begun in 1897. The first Congress was held in Basel, famously convened by Theodor Herzl. And there have now been 38 of them. The 39th is coming up this October, as you mentioned. And it is the global parliament of the Jewish people, with representatives from about 40 countries who participate, and they're really elected to sit there based on their activism, based on their Zionist vision and activities in their different countries. It's a grassroots election and a parliamentary system of people who are the workers and the activists in different countries, not necessarily the philanthropists, but the most active people in the Zionist movement from around the world. And a third of the delegates come from America, about a third from around the world, and a third from Israel. In America, we hold the largest election for the Zionist Congress. There are over 124,000 people who have voted so far. That equals the number who voted in the last election in 2020. Voting started on March 10th and will end on May 4th. So hopefully if you're watching this before May 4th, you'll go to ZionistElection.org and vote. You can then get a virtual I voted sticker. And we can talk more about it, but this is a process in which more Americans are engaging than ever before at this point, halfway through the election when we're talking on April 8th. And that shows that a lot of Americans across a very diverse ideological and religious and political spectrum are all together standing up for Zionism and expressing their views on where the Zionist movement, State of Israel, the Jewish community should be heading. There's 22 different slates that people can vote for. I think almost every American Jew would find one that represents their viewpoint, or maybe several, and they have to choose one. It's a little bit different than the usual elections that we're used to in America, where you're electing an individual candidate, usually from a Democratic or Republican party, or sometimes a nonpartisan local election. Here you're voting for a slate of like a parliamentary election, and you vote for the group that reflects your views and your values, and then based on that, they send delegates to the Zionist Congress. There are 152 delegates who will be elected from America and will represent those parties and those groups together with others from around the world.
Okay, so the slate that has more votes will have more seats?
Right.
Is that how it works?
So last time there were 14 slates that ran and won out of 15. There are 22 slates running this time. Each slate basically gets 1/152nd of, if they get that many votes, they get a seat at the Zionist Congress. So roughly, let's say a party gets 10% of the vote, they would get 15 seats at the Zionist Congress. And if you look at the list of their delegates, the top people would go. There are alternates who can go. Sometimes people, give up the seat and move down the list. If you look on the website at zionistelection.org or the AZM website, the American Zionist Movement, azm.org, you can see all the parties, what they stand for, their platform, which is their ideology, and their list of their candidates.
Okay, so they attend the Congress in October. What happens there that then decides where funding is going, what issues are, whether it's caring for orphans in Israel or whether it's caring for agriculture or what have you. So what happens at the Congress, and then how does that impact what happens down the road?
So for people who've been following the election, you may see a lot of attention on, there's $1 billion a year at stake or things like that. So the Congress is the parent body that oversees the national institutions, the Mosdot Ha'Leumim in Hebrew, which are the World Zionist Organization, the Jewish National Fund, Karen Kayemet LeIsrael, the Jewish Agency of Israel, the Sochnut, and the Karen HaYesod, lesser known in America, but that's the fundraising arm of the Zionist movement around the world. These institutions, just for a way of background, were founded by the Zionist Congress, the Karen Kayemet directly by Herzl, and as well as the WZO in the early years of the movement, and later on the others, and they are the connector between World Jewry and the State of Israel. The Zionist institutions continued to exist even after the state was founded because of that bridge role, and these institutions, which are quasi-governmental in a way, have a special status in Israel, not just a regular NGO, and they help perform functions for the Jewish community in Israel and for Jews around the world, Aliyah, helping support Jewish communities, supporting Zionist education and Jewish education, things that the sovereign nation of Israel might not do in its normal governmental portfolio, but Israel is a unique nation and with a connection to the diaspora, and therefore the national institutions play that role. So the Zionist Congress oversees them. It sets the tone and structure and leadership and values of the national institutions for the next 5 years. It's kind of like a political convention in a way, like the RNC or the DNC in America, where every 5 years the party faithful, in this case the Zionists from around the world, come together. You get chizuk and strength and get fired up, and you set a platform and a direction, and then also elect the people that are going to run those institutions and who are going to head up the different departments. Think of it like an American, as a result of an election, the cabinet secretaries change and the department heads change, and the undersecretaries and the people running the different aspects of the government change. So that might change as a result of the makeup of the the convention based on of the Congress, the Zionist Congress, based on whether they're religious streams or their political ideologies, and those people will help determine the priorities down the line. And there's various boards and committees that meet during the year, annually, several committees that meet throughout the year that work on budget allocations and things like that. So all of that really comes out of the Congress. The Congress isn't itself voting on a line item budget, and the $1 billion that people talk about, which is the real sum of the budgets of those institutions and how much they spend every year, it comes out of the general direction of the Congress. And the delegates and the parties that go to the Congress aren't just there alone, but they form factions, coalitions to achieve their goals. One of the things that we like to say about this election is that there's really no winners and losers. It's not like you're going to have one elected official who wins and the other guy goes home, or in a parliamentary system, a coalition government and an opposition, which they have in many parliamentary countries, including Israel, et cetera. So here, it's really a coalition of everybody, all the Zionist parties, all the views. We don't want any internal opposition in our movement. We want a big tent of Zionists of all stripes, and everyone will have a seat at the table. Their strength, their influence may depend by the election results and the results in other countries that have elections and representatives from Israel. So certain parties may have more seats and more influence than others, but everyone will have a seat at the table to express their views. And some of the things are maybe things you mentioned, but there are priorities for the national institutions on that different parties are espousing for religious services or different religious streams that they want funding for those programs in Israel and around the world. For shlichim, to focus on certain aspects of the community, the emissaries from Israel. For a greater focus on Jewish education or campuses or security or other needs. Some of the parties that are running are advocating policies that are diplomatic, whether they're for a one state, two state solution that's not directly in the purview of the Congress to vote on, but the Congress representing World Jewry can set a policy statement on the views of the Jewish community, or whether funding should be spent over the green line or not. So some of those aspects are
kind of veer into the political a little bit.
But some of them are more directed towards funding priorities. But as in American elections and others, there's an adage that politics is people. So the people that get elected as a result of the elections and those who are going to run the departments will have a great impact on the policies and the funding for those activities.
And you said the number of slates is higher than I think it's ever been.
22, correct, right.
Real diversity. Again, there's a pamphlet you can see online at azm.org. You can see this pamphlet of all these slates and their platforms, and it's really quite impressive. What do you think accounts for even a greater diversity, even a larger number of slates coming up on this election?
So we have slates of every aspect of the community, all the religious streams, political ideology, some slates that are allied with Israeli political parties, some that are non-aligned or not connected, some that come from certain aspects of the community like Sephardic groups or Russian-speaking communities, Israeli-American groups, several that that are participating for the first time because the Israeli-American community wants to have a voice. Some of it, for example, some of it is a result of a resurgence, where people talked about the surge of Jewish activism and involvement after October 7th. Some of it was beginning before. I can tell you that even 2 or 3 years ago, before October 7th, we were getting inquiries from different groups that wanted to run in the next Zionist Congress election because people were getting engaged. There were a lot of debates in Israel's 75th year about the judicial reform and the Kotel and all sorts of other issues that were getting American Jews or diaspora Jews fired up to express their opinions, and that triggered people trying to say, well, maybe we should start to think about the Zionist Congress in 2025. So some of it was even before. I think it was really amplified after October 7th, when so many people wanted to be involved. And for us, seeing really historic numbers of people voting already shows that people are embracing Zionism. They have to go to a website that's called ZionistElection.org. They have to sign up and agree to the Jerusalem program, which is listed there, the platform of the Zionist movement, really the successor platform in many words from what Herzl began. They have to identify with the Zionist movement. There's a small fee of $5 to register that helps with the processing and verifying voters, and that's paid to the American Zionist Movement. So people are really connecting to Zionism through this election. And we see that the parties want to reach different aspects of the community, different segments. There are more students, student activists who became engaged after protests on campuses and things. So many of those people are saying, well, here's something tachlis that we can do, and we can express our views through the Zionist Congress.
So let's talk about that word Zionism for a minute, because obviously it's in your name. This is what we're talking about, the Zionist movement, being proud Zionists. And we also know that that word, that term has been under attack, not just since October the 7th, but certainly truly just constantly weaponized against us and equated with really terrible things. What would you say to someone who is of that mindset, or is, how would you respond to how that word has just been really just degraded and used by people against us, as opposed to something that is truly a source of pride?
So Zionism is a source of pride. First of all, it's in our history, it's in our roots. In whatever synagogue you go to or denomination, the prayers, the tefillot every day on Shabbat throughout the year talk about Tzion, Zion. It's in Hatikva that talks about our yearning to return to the land of Zion. So Zionism is a core part of the Jewish identity for Jews. The diversity of the slates. We have parties from right to left, from Haredi parties, all religious streams, as I said, non-denominationals, every aspect of the Jewish community that's there, and all the Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox movements, and several in those different groupings. It really shows how prevalent and pervasive Zionism is throughout the American Jewish community. So, to the point when people are attacking Zionism, they're really attacking Jews. We've seen, I think, a growing understanding that anti-Zionism is a form of anti-Semitism, and Zionism is a movement, is the national liberation movement of the Jewish people. It's a movement for the Jewish people to have a homeland of our own in our ancestral land in Israel, and it's giving us a right in a homeland that other people have, and in a place that we have a historic connection to, and that's what the core of the Zionist movement. And it's not, unfortunately, the attacks on Zionism didn't just begin after October 7th. This year will mark 50th anniversaries for the 50th anniversary of one of the darkest days in the UN's history, when the UN declared Zionism as a form of racism. And while that was repealed in 1991, I think it was, that stain has endured, and there have been many efforts that we and others have participated in to reclaim Zionism. I don't think we need to rebrand Zionism, but we need to make sure that people understand that we're proud of being Zionists. We're proud of our Zionism. What Zionism is, it's not a colonial movement. It's not a racist movement. It's giving the Jewish people pride and a homeland in our ancestral land.
Amen. And you touched a bit about, since October the 7th, this reconnecting for a lot of people with their Jewish identity, with their Zionism. I feel like it's so much of it is like just feeling more connected to each other, because we all experience this horrific thing, whether we were in Israel, which is of course a different experience altogether, like to the nth degree, but as Jews outside of Israel, how we felt, how we were devastated and still are dealing with the trauma of what happened, and it's not over. There are still 59 hostages still being held in Gaza. For today marks 550 days, which is absolutely unreal. But I feel like just, you'd go you'd see a fellow Jew somewhere. It doesn't matter from what stream of Judaism or if they go to synagogue or not or whatever, and you're like, okay, I see you, we're connected. You want to give that person a hug because what we've been through has been absolutely devastating. So you're definitely seeing it in more votes for the Zionist Congress. But I imagine that you feel similarly in what you see and what you hear from the Jewish community. And
look, elections are competitive, and this election is competitive, and the different slates and parties are trying to get out their votes. But I'll use an example of a meeting we had in our office just this morning with families of hostages, some known to be deceased, some who are alive, who were visiting New York for the year-and-a-half anniversary for when we're taping this conversation. And let's hope by the time people watch this,
so.
they'll be released. We had in the room many of the organizations in AZM and many of the slates that were there that are running, and everyone was in the room to focus on the hostages. So they have, they'll do their campaigning and activism outside, but in that room, and we had leaders of the Reform, Orthodox, and Conservative movement, and we had people from the right and the left. Everyone was there to focus on the hostages. So there's a lot that unites us. There's we often talk about unity and not uniformity in the Zionist movement. We're united around a lot of things. Obviously, our core support for Israel, for helping support the soldiers, for freeing the hostages, and I think there's a lot that unites Jews around the world. Where you'll see a Jew, or if you're visiting, or a Jewish community in some other country, and you see you see the yellow chair or the missing seat or the yellow ribbon, and you identify with people no matter who they are, even if they speak a different country or they're a different tradition of Judaism.
Yeah.
And when people visit Israel, we are asking everyone how they're doing, from the diaspora visiting Israel, and they're asking, how are you doing? What's going on campus? And everyone sees how we're all intertwined. It's really kol echad arevim zeh bazeh. The Jewish community is really connected one another around the world, and that's one of the aspects of the Zionist movement. The Zionist movement, as I understand it, Herzl's vision was not just the Zionist movement end in 1948 or whenever the state would be created, but it would continue as a bridge between those who live in the land of Israel, the state of Israel, and Jews around the world. And that's one of the important roles of the Zionist movement today.
Well, Herb, that's beautifully said. I hope indeed what you said earlier about the hostages comes true very, very soon. Am Yisrael Chai. We pray for the best and hope for the best, and reminding people that they can vote you can give the website again if you'd like.
If you're an American Jew who's over 18, who supports the Jerusalem program, the platform of the Zionist movement, primarily as their primary residence in the United States, a couple other technical things you'll see on the website. You can vote until May 4th. Through May 4th that night, Sunday, May 4th, at zionistelection.org. You can learn more at azm.org, at the website of the American Zionist Movement. And we hope people will participate, whatever their views are, stand up, support a view of Zionism, and express your solidarity and engagement with the Zionist movement.
Herb Block is the Executive Director of the American Zionist Movement. We thank him so much for being here today on JBS.